If you're doing something over and over again and you're doing it differently every single time, then things are going to get messy.
Hello and welcome to the Gym Owners Forum podcast. As usual, I'm Tom. And today on the podcast, we're going to be looking at all things business operations and admin. I appreciate it's not the most glamorous topic, but really knowing what it takes to actually run a streamlined and successful business is so important and key to running a successful gym. Now, our guest today is very clued into that idea and that topic. Sarah Iles is a virtual assistant, business consultant, and also ex-gym owner. So she's really been in all and every single part of what it takes to actually run a business and run a gym. And I thought it'd be useful to tap into her knowledge today and see what she thinks is important when running a gym. Sarah, I thought it was an interesting conversation today to have because actually it's quite a unique perspective of A, being on both sides of the coin, A, helping gym owners and also being a gym owner yourself. But one thing came to mind with the virtual assistant stuff that I thought was quite funny in terms of like control freaks. And I think, so obviously you were own the gym with your partner, and quickly give me a breakdown of what both your roles were, I guess.
So Dave is an ex-professional fighter. So he'd always wanted to own a gym. And when this came about, he actually bought it with somebody else. I bought that side of the partnership out about a year or so in. And he was very, very much, I want to find a gym, had been personal training for years. So when he found the space, I have a background in account management. I've worked in business development, recruitment, operations, everything above, beyond and in between, really. So it was just kind of a no-brainer, really, to bring me in to do the admin and ops side of things. So he was very much the face of it, looking after, maintaining all the equipment.
You were the brains.
And I
yeah.
And I was the brains.
You're being modest, I'm sure, but yeah. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, it's quite an interesting split because actually I think in terms of it, like when someone opens a gym, I think pretty typically probably like 85% of gym owners that open a gym are actually your partner, and they're in his situation where it is that passion project and there's maybe not that much kind of business experience in the background. So it's definitely a field where I feel like you actually have quite a lot of I don't want to say it like that, but more valuable experience, I guess, in that sense.
You can say it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
he might disagree with you.
Yeah, no, well, he's not here to fight back, so it's fine. But I think I kind of wanted to focus a lot on that stuff today because actually it's although it's not the most glamorous, I think it is actually most impactful on the business. So, I mean, going back to my earlier sort of point on control freaks, is there ever a time where like you found that you guys had to kind of set boundaries in a sense so that like if he was ever kind of overreaching onto your stuff, you ever overreaching onto his stuff? How do you kind of work around that dynamic in a partner-owned gym?
We made our roles very clear with what we were doing. So like I said, the admin and ops was very much my side of things. The marketing we were quite joint on how we did it, but we would always run everything past each other. Basically, if we were going to do anything, we would always talk to each other about it before. You have to have certain boundaries in place when you do something like that because we're also a couple.
Yeah,
you have to have those boundaries where we'd go, right, okay, when he got home in the evening, we'd probably talk about it for an hour, then that was it. Or we would try and keep it to talking in the gym about the gym. But then if we were out for dinner and it came up, we'd go, no, let's just park that and we'll talk about it later.
Is that quite hard to do?
It's very hard to do.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's really,
I find that
really
impossible.
hard to do because I've actually heard from a friend of mine who said that her and her partner are a couple and they have it where if they're out for dinner and they're kind of thinking about things like that, they email it to themselves or they send themselves a message and so that they talk to them about it later. They don't bring it up at dinner.
Okay.
Which I actually thought was a really good idea and I probably could have used that previously. But it is very hard, but you just have to have those certain boundaries in place. And we were always very respectful of what each other's areas were because I very honestly wouldn't know how to do what he did. And he has openly said he wouldn't know how to do what I do. But if they're, when I say we run everything past each other, it's not I mean, there were certain things that obviously if I'm replying to an email, I don't run past him.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the
yeah.
big things you would always run past each other.
I think, to be honest, it is like being a couple yourselves, I think probably made it easier because there already was that kind of understanding of like each other's boundaries and each other's limits and like what each other was capable of as well. So, but I think it, as you say, it's like it's built on respect
Yeah.
more than anything kind of thing. As long as you like respect them and your partner, whoever that is, like whether it's business partner or actual partner, I think, not that this is a love podcast, but yeah, I think that mutual respect is so important. So obviously then there's kind of the flip side of that of someone that's trying to do everything. What would you say? Obviously, trying to do everything, you kind of accomplish nothing. So what would you say are the kind of the main things when looking from a business admin perspective, like are the first things that you should really start with, and they're the things you should iron out and get perfect straight away?
I think for me, it was getting the processes in place for how things were done. Because if you're doing something over and over again and you're doing it differently every single time, then things are going to get messy. So it was for me putting that process in place for, we've got a membership management company that we used, but having that when somebody signs up, okay, right, they need to get this email, this then goes out to them, they will get a fob assigned to them, and then they'll go down a certain process. It was having those in place so we knew what was going to happen every time a certain transaction happened.
So in terms of the processes, can you kind of just go into a little bit more about what those were specifically and what they kind of accomplished?
I think with the membership side of things, it was making sure that they had, because that email that goes out to them when they sign up is their very first impression. Obviously, most of them, they will have come to look around the gym. The majority of members that came to us either knew, I would say 90% of them came from Dave. But the rest came from the business part, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. But they would, most of the time they would have come to see the gym. But if they haven't, that email is their first experience of the gym and of this kind of service that they're going to get. And if you're going, oh, well, I'll just send it 2 or 3 days later, somebody signed up, you need to get them immediately. Otherwise they're going to think, oh, great, well, this is what I'm going to get from this gym.
It really like, it sets that idea in their head that like, oh, it's literally just a gym.
Yeah.
It's not like a community. It's not got like they don't really give a shit about me unless I'm paying them basically. So yeah, I think it is so important. What are some of the things that you should include in that email that really like touch base? I mean, kind of getting into specifics a bit, but
mine really was making sure that they know that who runs it, that we're here to help them. It coming from, you can go into CRM systems. I always sent that email myself, and there are probably many people out there who will say that's not the way to do it. But it just, for me, coming from that physical email address where they know that they can reply to that person instantly and they'll get a person straight away rather than the no replies. That was something that just differentiated ourselves a bit, and the members quite liked, because then they come back with questions going, oh, okay, can I come and pick my fob up tomorrow?
And I think actually that's kind of a testament to just like putting effort in as well. Do you find that, I mean, it's literally a saying, but it's like the more you put in, the more you get out. Do you find that a lot of people that maybe struggle with like running their business maybe aren't actually just doing like the extra bit of effort to do all that like additional little stuff that actually makes such a big difference?
Yeah, I think you can't really put a price on doing the small things. And some people think that there are certain things, like sending that first email and making sure that they get that personal touch in there. I think some people don't see the value in that, and they're really missing a trick with it.
What I mean, like, it doesn't really have a correct answer, but what's the reasoning for people not finding the value in that or not seeing the importance in that? Maybe
I think maybe not understanding,
yeah,
just having a lack of understanding of it.
I totally agree. So I mean, it's pretty clear that like, I think from what we've just spoken about, then like the admin side of things is super important, and obviously now since closing the gym, which we will touch on in a little bit. But since closing the gym, obviously you have continued doing your virtual assistants like consultancy.
Yes. So I started that 2 years ago now, just over 2 years ago. And I basically had been made redundant 4 times since the pandemic. I'd come into a company that really wanted to grow, and then they go, oh no, we don't have the finances to do it, or whatever other reason it was. But the 4th time it happened, I just thought, I am so done working for somebody else. And I'd seen a girl that I used to work with who had set up as a virtual assistant, but I thought it was like these, and no there's nothing wrong with anybody that does this, but these travel agent companies that are set up, everybody's a travel agent these days.
Yeah.
And I kept seeing, I thought, is this virtual assistant business like that? What is this?
Yeah.
And I learned a bit more about it. And actually, every single virtual assistant out there is different, because you can take all of your experience throughout your career, basically package it up and sell it to people. Where for me, I love the admin part of it, and I like the calendar management and helping people clean their inboxes. I know I sound weird when I say that, but I love it. But for me, I like going in, and I will embed myself in the business. I've got 3 amazing clients at the moment. I am looking to grow it quite substantially. I want to grow it into an agency within the health and fitness sector. That's kind of my next plan. But I really go in and embed myself as part of the business, and I become very strategic and help people figure out their processes within the business as well.
The way I kind of understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a strategic consultant internally that's like just hands-on and actually does a lot of the stuff that they're strategizing as well.
Yeah, well, that's how I work it. There are VAs out there who are very social media focused, and there are some that are very just admin focused and like doing kind of the PA side of things. I'm a EA PA for most of my clients, but that's kind of a bolt on, really. I'll do that as well as. But for a lot of them, I've just got a new one who I'm helping figure out a lot of her branding and how she just write a whole business plan. So it's kind of, I do it going very much in that way, but there are other VAs who might work slightly differently. But it's figuring out what your strengths are and what you enjoy doing, and basically giving that as a business to people.
So what's your process when you start doing that? When you kind of go into let's say it's a gym, for example, you go into a gym and they say like, I don't know what I'm doing, help me. Kind of, what's the process from like, obviously you don't have to go on for an hour, but what's the process like start to finish of what do you decide is important? How do you decide that? Then kind of where do you go from there?
I will sit down and have a conversation with them and figure out where the pain points are. So get them to talk me through their business, take me through sort of a snapshot of when they started their business to where it is now and what they're finding the problems are. And I find that sometimes as people talk through that journey, they'll then start to see a lot more of what they don't tend to talk about.
Yeah.
So they might say to me, this is where I'm having problems. But as they start to sort of talk to me through that journey, I go, I think that might be an area that I need to look at. I'll then document all of that and give them a list of everything that I kind of need to help with and the conversations that I'd like to have through it. A lot of it is putting processes in place. So like I've said before, if you're going through your processes and everything you're doing it differently every time. So if there's a process for example, signing up members, and it's different every time somebody does it, there needs to be a process for that. So it is and some people will go, oh, I don't like putting processes in place, but they are important because you need to make sure it's having that customer journey. So I think it is kind of learning where those pain points are, putting those processes in place, making it sure that it's something that they're going to be comfortable with their members going through, making sure it's the kind of thing that they would do for their brand. Because while I say putting these processes in place, every company is different in how they do it.
It's interesting because like when you're saying it and it's kind of so obvious that is what you're supposed to be doing. It's like automating a lot of this stuff just so you don't have to do it in the future. But I think the kind of in my opinion, I think the stopping block for a lot of people is maybe that kind of not perceiving the value correctly, and also just like not thinking it's worth putting the time and effort into initially to do. Is that right, would you say? Or is there what are the kind of stopping blocks that are stopping people from, that you find stop people from kind of doing that?
I think time is a lot of it, which is why they need somebody like myself to do that for them. So I think that is a big stopping block. And then I think sometimes they don't see that they need it. So that's why I'd get them to take me on that journey through their business and where it's gone. Because I think sometimes there are processes that they don't realise that they need.
Is there like a really quick like kind of idiot check that you could do for like someone listening now to say like, do this, depending on what you get back, that's like the indicator that you need help? What are the kind of KPIs that would indicate that someone's struggling with their processes?
I would say if your processes are changing every time, then you need to have a look at them. I know I've said that a few times,
if you don't
but
have
it really
one. Well,
is
it's
key
true,
if you don't
though, isn't
have
it?
them. If you are if your inbox is completely out of control, if you've got emails, I have one of my clients said this to me once and it really stuck with me, that she likes to have at the end of every week, she likes to have all her emails on zero. So at the end of every week, I manage about 5-6 different inboxes at the moment. And I like to have them all on zero by close of play every Friday.
Is that just purely for like organization?
Yeah, for an organization point of view. And if I'm organizing client inboxes, I like to have them sort of down to as much as close to zero as possible, or at least have them down to a point where I'm going, right, this is everything that you need to look at on Monday.
What's the assumption that people make about what you do that you would say is kind of incorrect? Is there any assumptions that you think people have about virtual assistants?
Kind of assumptions. I think the biggest thing with the assumptions that people have, I told a friend about what I was doing. I hadn't seen them for years. And I said, oh, I've set up as a virtual assistant. And they said, oh, so you just take phone calls all day?
Nice.
No, that's not quite what it is. Or, oh, you're just an appointment setter. There are VAs out there that like doing that if they're very business development led, or they just kind of want to be, oh, I'll book appointments for this. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there is that assumption of it's just a virtual personal assistant.
Yeah.
And it's so much more than that.
You touched on that earlier before we started recording this, and you said that like one of the things they said was like, why don't I just get someone that's like cheaper, that's based in like the Philippines if I want to do that? And yeah, like we obviously both laugh because I think it's for someone like Virgin or O2 that we kind of touched on. I think that for them to kind of outsource all their like admin and calling stuff to something that probably is a lower quality like off service, based on a number of things. It is like the person you're calling in that call center probably has like 10 clients they're actually working with and probably doesn't really care or understand your problem. And I think when you're an independent and a business that's on kind of a smaller scale, I think that kind of stuff is so important. That like good service, that easy like understanding and like caring attitude, I think is something that goes a massively long way. So I think because you're someone that has that lived experience, actually does kind of give a shit because it's your name on the line as well, I think that actually is the value. And for maybe probably an additional cost of whatever XYZ, we'll talk after. I think it's so worth it. And it's a kind of a testament to this as well. It's like by actually just caring, it kind of goes a long way. And I think naturally like that gets paid back towards you. I've gone off on a massive tangent.
I think you're completely correct. And I've got clients. So one of my clients has been with me for nearly over 2 years now. She was my very first client when I started. She runs a sports consultancy that is doing amazing things for women in sport. And she's a friend as well as a client. I'd like to go in and become part of my client's business and have that personal touch for it, because I am being strategic and helping them with their kind of how they shape their whole business, really. You have to have somebody that has that personal touch in there.
Yeah.
If you get somebody in that doesn't really care about your business, then they're just going to come in and go, right, these are the processes you need to use. Bam, I'm off.
Yeah.
I come in, I stick around, and I help in the long term as well.
I think it's the education part of it as well. And as you say, like, I think the understanding and not necessarily grasping like the why it's important to like have these processes in your business. I think that educational side is like a responsibility of yours almost.
I think sometimes when you come in and you do these processes, there are things I need to be almost 2 steps ahead of my clients' thinking sometimes. And there are people that might come in and not be able to do that. But that's part of what I offer when I come in. I go, oh, have you thought about doing this? Oh, what about this platform to help you? So there's a platform that one of my clients has just put in place that helps with all of her to-do lists for every area of her business, or, managing events through it. She's built this whole team behind her as well. So it helps manage what they're doing as well.
And did you help with that, like the decision-making in that also?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I think because that's quite interesting as well is that she's obviously, I think there's the obvious angle of why someone would kind of use a virtual assistant in terms of like stress. But there's also that element of like, I think the people that maybe do have that understanding but just need like the extra pair of hands. What's the difference when kind of approaching someone that's like growing their business and that is kind of clued in versus someone that's just needs like processes put in place?
I think it's looking at what they already have in place and what is and what isn't working, and that takes time.
Mm.
So kind of making sure that person understands that it's going to take time, that a lot of it isn't going to be that quick fix of going, oh, I'll just put this in place and that'll fix that. There is that element of going into a business, spending time with the team, understanding what's working and what's not, and really then going, okay, how can we fix that? This is what I'm thinking. Are you happy with that? So
Mm.
it is really kind of making sure that you get to understand what everybody's doing within that business, really.
The VA business its niche lies in kind of health and fitness businesses. Would you say that there's a split between like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is your clientele, is it like gyms, actual gyms themselves and like facilities, or would you say it's more useful in like a corporate, something like Ashbourne, for example?
I think at the moment, because most of my clients are all very the small business side of things, but I am really keen, obviously after owning a gym myself, I am very keen to kind of move into helping other gyms and seeing if there is that capacity to move in there as well.
Would you say it's a lot more like passive in a sense? You can kind of. I'm just genuinely curious. In a gym, would you say you can afford to be a bit more passive in terms of like once the processes are done, you can kind of leave them, or would you say you should always be like updating, tweaking, adding?
I think it depends what kind of team they've got in there already. So if they need somebody to just come in and go, right, we need you to fix them, I'd probably then check back in a couple of months and say, how's it all going? It could be that they just need somebody to come in and do their processes, and that's absolutely fine. But I think it needs to be somebody that's long term, because there's always stuff that's going to need to be changing as a business grows. Things need to change and adapt. And I've spoken about processes a lot, but I do a lot more than that as well.
Fair. I mean, do expand on that a little bit then.
So I am I've got experience in account management. So I do project management for one of my clients as well.
Okay,
so I
nice.
do a lot of the client facing stuff for them. So they've got a number of different clients that they're working in partnership with. I look after all of those partnerships for them and manage them. I've done recruitment for a health company that are doing some fantastic stuff for medicinal cannabis.
Okay.
So I did a lot of their recruitment for them. And I also do the EA and admin side of things as well. But I'm going into one business and I'm helping them completely build their brand. I've worked with some of the biggest brands. So Global Radio, I worked with them when I worked for an online dating company, which is a whole nother story.
I'm not going to ask you about that.
So I've worked with them. I've worked with some of the biggest names across magazine and TV. So I know how to build a brand and how to help do that. So that's something that I go into companies and do as well.
Last podcast episode that we filmed, actually, we spoke about like the similarities between gym owners and like restaurant owners. And I think they were quite like passion-led businesses, and you get into it because it's like what you love. And I feel like they're probably the two demographics of business owners that I know that are always the most stressed.
I know what you mean. I think when you run a gym, you don't realize how much admin there is behind it.
Yeah.
And how much you need to be looking at how the gym is performing and what you can do to improve that. I was always looking at things like, were we getting more members than we were losing? So I think there is that kind of it that people don't realize. You should always be looking at your stats and how the gym is performing, but also the emails that come in from members that are querying, member queries and things like that, the financial side of it as well. So keeping an eye on your profit and loss, which was a complete learning curve to me.
Yeah.
It's something that I hadn't done. And when we first started, our business, Dave's business partner before, his other half was doing all of that. When we took it over, I took over all of that, and it was something that was completely new to me. But we had fantastic accountants that helped us.
But obviously, touching on like obviously owning the gym, it obviously shut down due to circumstances that were outside of kind of control. But when you first started doing that, like running the gym, in terms of the stats, is it quite easy, because you said it was your first time, is it quite easy to kind of get lost in all of that data? How do you kind of make sense of it and kind of make actionable actions from that?
It is very easy to get lost in it because there's so many things to look at, but we were very lucky to have a good membership management system. Had a great dashboard that kind of gave you all the information that you
them out
need.
if you want. I don't worry.
Dashboard are fantastic,
Yeah,
just
there you go.
FYI. But I found that very useful of when I'm looking at it, that I had that dashboard that was kind of telling me a lot of those things. I think there are probably some gyms out there who might use their own systems, or, you know, you just get members to come and sign up and not really look at that kind of stuff. But I think it is very easy to get lost in it, and you really need to figure out what stats are important for your business and not be looking at everything. Just go. So I did focus a lot on whether there were more members coming in than we were losing, and those returning members, because it costs you a lot more to get new members than it does to keep your members, obviously. But I think making sure that those returning members, I was always worried when I saw a cancellation email, the emails you never want to see, this person's cancelled, or this person's cancelled their direct debit. It's making sure that those members that are in your gym are happy and that they're staying.
I think also there's a part of that that's like, well, you touched on it, saying it's more expensive to get a new member than an old one. There's a lot of people that kind of completely ignore that, and I see it a lot, and it's really like having that, even that's probably a really good place to start, is just having a process for your leaving members to make them feel welcomed. Because I think there is that kind of subconscious part when you leave a gym, and it's like if you broke up with your partner and then they text you like, no hard feelings, we'll always love you. That sounds like, I don't know.
We did always used to say that. In every time a member cancelled, I would always say to them, if you're always welcome back.
Yeah.
A lot of people that cancelled, it does.
I've never had one of those texts as well, by the way. I know it looked like there was a tear coming out, but no.
But a lot of people that cancelled, it was just generally because they were moving out of the area, or you know, we were on a business park, they were leaving the company or things like that. And I would always say to them, you're always welcome back. And they never really had a bad word to say about it. I think it's very rare that I don't think we ever had anybody say to us, I'm leaving because your gym's crap.
Yeah. Which is a nice thing to have, yeah.
Which is good.
No, I think that's completely right. And in terms of then actually doing the gym and running the gym, what if you can be honest with me for a second, what was the one kind of thing that you always kind of pushed to the back and maybe like thought it's not that important, that actually would end up kind of biting you in the ass?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. I don't really know. I think the finances are a big thing that I would kind of, luckily I had a great accountant who would look at things on a weekly basis for us. But I think for me, I would kind of be going, oh, I don't want to look at, I was in the bank accounts every day. I was looking at the bank account every day, but there are certain elements of it financially that I think I was just going, oh, I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just let the accountant do that. And maybe I wish I'd looked at a bit more.
I think but that's a very valid point on like everything we've been speaking about as well, is actually like, because there wasn't necessarily that lack of understanding and maybe even that like trepidation to kind of go into it, that kind of meant that it was the thing that you didn't focus on, when actually, I mean, everything's almost equally as valuable, because if you're not doing one thing, like,
this is probably a strange way to explain it, but there's being strategic from a business side, and then there's being strategic from a financial point of view as well. And I think maybe being strategic from a financial side was where I did lean on the accountants more.
But that's the right thing to do, though.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think maybe that side of it was probably, I mean, that's a really tricky question.
You could have turned around and said nothing. I was absolutely fantastic. And
I'd like to think I was across everything, but I think there's obviously certain elements that you kind of.
Is there anything that you feel like is just something that like everyone should focus on, that people really kind of underestimate the power of, or is it like those processes or even the financials?
I think for gym owners, it's just the experience and realizing the value that being unique as a gym has. Dave is extremely unique as a person, but but he's also very unique in how he would do things with the gym. He'd take a piece of equipment and do something with it that nobody else would even think of. And I think it is realizing how valuable that is, and making that community feel in a gym as well. The amount of people that came in, I loved seeing members that came in and they were talking to each other, helping each other with equipment. You'd see one padding the other and everything like that. I think that is just, you can't put a price on that.
How do you foster that? Like, how do you foster that kind of community?
It builds over time. It's something that just takes time, and it's that Dave knew the name of, I knew the name of the regulars that came in, but Dave really got to know everybody that came in the gym and was saying hello to everybody that came in. I was up in the office most of the time, but that was a big thing, making sure that you know your members, and really giving them that community family feel when they come into the gym.
So, I mean, the community aspect of it, I think, is really important. And there is something I mean, like even a testament to literally like you being here today, and then like all that Dave knowing everyone by name. I think it's really important is that like networking aspect, and just that like, don't be afraid. Like if you go say hi to someone, or if you reach out to someone, like they're not going to tell you to, like they're not going to shout at you and bite your head off. Like I think there's a really, really important.
Unless you don't put your weights away.
Okay, fair. Yeah, no, valid. And I think that there is that important fact, like there's something to be said about that kind of networking and just really like putting yourself out there. Would you say it was ever like fake or forced in terms of that, like that feel, or would you say it's just like a natural thing that you had?
I think you can't put a price on talking to other gym owners. I think there's a real, not stigma, but I think there's a real thing around gym owners not talking to each other. But Dave knows, and I know quite a few other gym owners, and talking to each other and them going, oh, I did this last week and that really worked for me. And then you taking it and obviously not doing an exact copy, but putting your own spin on it. I think things like that are so helpful. And obviously that's what you guys can help with.
I feel like I've just paid you to say that. I didn't pay you to say that. Don't worry. But yeah, it's so true. And I mean, like, again, I think I said this in our last episode actually, but like I'm relatively new to the industry. I've been here for like 2 years, verging on 3, I think actually. But I don't know the most in almost any room that I go into. And I think that's really the mentality you have to have, is like you can learn so much from everyone because everyone has their own experience they can share onto you.
I think if you're walking into a room and you think you know everything, then you're going to fail.
I think that's completely fair. What is there something to be said for like people that maybe aren't as confident or proactive in terms of what, I mean, this is again a really kind of vague philosophical question, but like what would you say to people that maybe didn't have that confidence to go out and network? How would you kind of get started with talking to other gym owners or meeting other gym owners?
Someone said to me the other day, we are always learning until the day we die. And that's really, really sat with me. And I think will always sit with me. I always say every day is a school day. You learn something new every day. But I think just not being afraid to make mistakes and not worrying about that you don't know everything. You don't need to know everything. You should always be learning because that's how you grow. So I think it's just realizing that it's okay to not know it all.
Yeah. And actually, I think that the world, it's that fear, but the world doesn't end when something goes completely wrong. It like everything continues.
Yeah.
You get another chance to go again. I think I mean, again, I think we're doing a like philosophy podcast over anything else, but it is. I think that's something that's made me a lot more like confident in doing the video stuff and kind of putting myself out there is literally just realizing actually like nothing matters.
No.
kind of in that sense that you just really got to go out and just try your best. And then if it comes back, it's like obviously after the kind of, you found out the gym was closing, like how do you kind of come back from that? What's your kind of initial feeling? And then how do you kind of come back from that and go, actually, you know what, like,
I think and not seeing yourselves as failures. I had people say to me, please don't think that you're a failure because this has happened, because you learn from everything. You learn from everything that happens, and we've learned a huge amount from this. But we were literally doing everything we could to try and save this business for a long time.
Yeah.
There were rising costs of everything that are going up, and I'm sure a lot of gym owners can sympathise or understand when I'm saying things like our council tax tripled. It went from £400 a month to £1,400 a month. And that is something that then started to eat away in our savings pocket, that, you know, the amount that we were building up every month. That's just one example. There were just rising costs of everything. And when you're trying to run and maintain a gym and your savings are constantly getting eaten into with all these bills that were just increasing massively, it's just something that becomes out of your control. Obviously there's other factors in there, but
what's kind of one thing during that process where kind of, for your case it was kind of unstoppable, but I think for someone that kind of realizes that actually their savings getting eaten into, what's kind of the thing that people should do to maybe if you could go back and kind of change one thing that you did, what would be the thing that you feel would have like the most impact? Would it be like getting support? Would it be changing something within the gym?
I think getting support would have been extremely helpful. We had it where we were trying to get business loans, but they weren't looking at us because we were so young as a company. I mean, we were 3 years in. We weren't when we started looking at loans, we weren't actually doing that badly, but we weren't doing bad at all, in fact. But I think not being afraid to go and ask for help. And we were talking to banks about the issues we were having, but they just wouldn't look at us because we were too young.
Yeah, which is frustrating. Is there any? I mean,
There's all these government schemes out there saying that they want to give you more money.
It's something that we're kind of looking at the moment as the Gym Owners Forum, but the like the business rates on pubs are going down. Have you heard about that at all?
No, I heard that they were meant to be going down in fitness, but doesn't seem to have happened.
But that's what we're kind of going to start lobbying for, I think, is actually the impact that gyms have on like community and health. It's not tit for tat, because I think pubs are kind of valuable. I mean, speaking personally, I think they're valuable, but I think actually there is that gyms really do have the power to contribute to community. I don't think they're necessarily taken seriously enough.
No, I don't think they are. And I think that, just speaking from experience, that council tax going up as much as it did, you can apply for rate relief, but I think we applied but never really heard back from it.
It doesn't help that councils are crap as well.
Well, they are. And that was just a massive hit on us. That's a month. So that was £1,000 a month that was being taken away from us. That very quickly, for a small business like us, really just had a massive hit on us.
Well, it does massively impact. Because it's 12,000 a year that you could like invest in something else that's massively helpful. The final question really I have for you is, what does the term business fundamentals mean to you personally? What are the fundamental things you have to get right in a business?
I think make sure you know who you're speaking to, who your target audience is. That's something that I'm on a course for my VA business, and that's something that's really been ingrained into me. Know who your target audience is, who you're talking to, what their interests are, what they're going to want. If you're niching as a gym, who are you niching to? Why is this important to them? And make sure you're talking to them. Build your ideal client. Build who are they? What do they want? What are they looking for? If you can get that and build your marketing around and your business around that,
then
I think that is a huge thing that was a big thing for us, because when we started compared to when we finished, it was always going to be boxing related because of Dave's background, but we wanted to be more than that. So it was sort of for athletes and people to come and do rest and recovery and everything else. But it was having that, we knew who we were talking to. We knew who our target audience was. That's something that I think businesses sometimes forget about.
Yeah. And it's arguably, especially with gyms, like the most important thing.
I think when you're dealing with, we had JD gyms open 15 minutes down the road from us, but because we catered to a certain audience, it did affect us, but it didn't affect us as much.
Yeah, in that sense, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the Gym Owners Forum podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So that is all for this episode of the Gym Owners Forum podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you again to Sarah for what was a really insightful talk on just what are the essential things that you should focus on at the core of your business in order for it to be able to grow into a success. If you like that podcast and you want more, check out on any of your podcast streaming platforms for the Gym Owners Forum podcast. And if you want more quick fire and actionable tips, head over to our socials where you'll find loads of stuff like that. And if you want, click the link in the bio for the website, which will take you to all of our events, resources, etc., and you can get in touch with us. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.